Are robots coming after your job? Throughout human history, technological advances have always replaced human beings. Technology has taken over the tasks that people once performed. There have been major periods in human history when this has gone forward at a staggering pace, but I would suggest that it's been going on continuously throughout human history to one degree or another. Each time there's been a major change in this area, there's been a period of panic when doomsday prophets have denounced the new technology, concerned about how it would take jobs away from human beings with catastrophic social consequences. Let's consider a couple of those occasions. The first and most obvious one is the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th century. This saw the mechanisation of a range of industries in manufacturing, such as textiles, for example. Machines like the spinning jenny and the power loom dramatically increased production and displaced many skilled artisans and weavers. And factories became great centres of production. They needed fewer and fewer workers for greater and greater output. So that's the first one. The second one was a little more recent, in the middle of the 20th century, with the advent of the computer. This revolutionised data processing, led to the automation of a whole range of clerical tasks. People like typists, file clerks and switchboard operators saw their jobs replaced by computers and software. These could perform the task much more efficiently and with much fewer errors. Would we really want to go back to the pre-computer days? Could we, even if we wanted to? Now, on each of these occasions, there have been doomsday predictions made. During the Industrial Revolution, it was the Luddites, a group of English workers at the beginning of the 19th century, who obviously feared that these new machines would destroy their jobs, their livelihoods. So they responded by destroying these machines and rioting, predicting widespread unemployment, social unrest, and so on. The reality was, though, that although there was this initial disruption and hardship, obviously, the Industrial Revolution ultimately led to enormous economic growth and the creation of whole new industries and jobs. There were reduced costs, and this made more goods accessible for you and I to buy. And this economic expansion created a whole new area of jobs and opportunities in not just in factories, but in transportation and perhaps most obviously in retail. Over time, people moved from farming type jobs, agrarian jobs, into industry and the service sector, for example. There were improved standards of living and a growth of the middle class. Again, would we really go back? During what we might call, I suppose, the computer revolution in the 1960s and 70s, many people feared that computers will lead to mass unemployment. Many Labour leaders and social commentators warned that automation of office work and other industrial processes would result in a jobless future, with millions of people rendered obsolete. But instead of mass unemployment, the advent of computers created entire new industries and job roles. IT sectors, software development, I mean, who isn't working in these areas these days? Tech support, all these things. I mean, computers increase productivity across a whole range of fields, allowing for more efficiency, better workflow. And again, this led to a great boon, great economic growth. We wouldn't go back. Of course, at the moment, we're on the cusp of another major revolution. We're at a kind of inflection point, I think, with the rise of robotics and automation and artificial intelligence and so on. The rise of robotics and automation in manufacturing and other industries has, of course, led to significant job displacement. Automobile assembly lines now rely heavily on robots for tasks that once were performed by human workers, people like my own father. Jobs like welding, painting, all of this has reduced the need for manual labour in factories once again. And again today we see prominent public figures like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking warning that advanced AI and robotics could lead to enormous unemployment and economic inequality. They suggested that without significant social change, these technologies could create a future where a large segment of the population is unable to find work. Sound familiar? Of course, we can't just have blind faith that all will be well. there will be profound impacts on society, and many of these will be very positive. Now, the issue of replacing people in jobs comes up all the time, and so far at least, whole new areas of employment have emerged. Again, obviously we can't just assume that this will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did. But let's consider the jobs that are lost. Does anyone actually want to work on a production line or at a checkout or a call centre? Maybe a few people do, but by and large, I think people undertake these jobs not because they're personally fulfilling, not because they wouldn't rather be doing something else, but because, obviously, they generate an income. And often these are entry-level jobs that don't necessarily require a high degree of educational skill, and people in these jobs may well struggle to find other jobs. Now, obviously, this is a real problem. But part of the problem is not the technology or the replacement of the people per se. It's the desire of the companies or organisations that use this new tech to cut costs and increase profits. Maybe some of those savings, maybe just a portion of it, instead of going into company profits and shareholders' pockets, could actually go into retraining programs. Particularly if government organisations use this technology, maybe the money that's freed up could also go towards such programs. Silly utopian ideas? Maybe. There's something else we might consider. Think of the mining industry or other industries in which there may be a high risk of injury. Wouldn't it be great if we had intelligent robots performing these tasks? But you know what actually worries me? If robots were working mines, they might be terribly expensive to replace if there was an accident. Human labour might in fact be much cheaper and a damn sight easier to replace. So, do we prefer a situation in which humans are a cheap, expendable, easily replaced workforce? One of the consequences of these changes might be that we each have more leisure time. Some large companies are already implementing shorter working weeks without any reduction in pay or other benefits. For example, in 2019 in Japan, Microsoft implemented a 4-day working week trial. They reported a 40% increase in productivity, reduced electricity costs by 23%, and employees took 25% less time off. Is anyone really going to complain about having more leisure time and better health? Here in Australia, Medibank began a trial in late 2022 where some of the teams working there were given the option of working 4 days a week while being paid for 5. In February of this year, they reported some of the changes implemented have included cutting unnecessary meetings, streamlining and shortening other meetings, simplifying communications, and using tools and technology to automate processes and free up time to focus on work that adds value to customers. Excitingly, the enthusiasm and buzz continues as our people improve the value of their outputs and free up time to focus on their health and well-being. I'm sure none of us want unnecessary meetings cut or meetings shortened and streamlined. I'm sure none of us really want to have time to focus on our health and our well-being, do we? Now, I think this is pretty cool. I know there are concerns out there about these new technologies, but we've been there before. Maybe I'm being naive, and maybe it's easy for me to say this because my job isn't on the line. Although I think writing and editing are, in fact, being really impacted by this new technology. And the narration of many YouTube videos these days is AI generated. But what I feel about this new technology is excitement rather than dread.